Bob solo, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Good. Are you still in that? No, you come home with the team, so you are home.
Yeah, we got home at about 11 o'clock. I walked through my door last night, got into Gillette. I take that back, about 10 o'clock. Uh, Walked through the door at home. So we got back to Providence around 9:30 or so. So it was, a really, for us, an easy trip in and out.
I heard you guys right before the game talking about how the fallback time change plus being in the central time zone was a bit of a mind f.
Well, that's because on the bus before we left the stadium at Gillette for the airport on Saturday, I think one of our crew members, it might have been Dennis Knutson, tried to convince Zoe that we're actually gaining 2 hours by going to Nashville
I
and
can
turning
only
the clock
imagine.
back.
Oh, man, that must have mystified him for hours.
So that led to a lengthy discussion, needless to say.
Oh,
Yeah.
you see, now that's something I wish I could have been a part of.
Was that payback for Mexico City, Bob? Is this a long payback for Mexico City?
But I see.
It's going to take a long time to pay back for Mexico City, Fred.
I see how you could pull that one off. But no, it's 2 hours this year. We're actually no for this the first year they're doing 2 hours. What?
It's because of the election. They don't want people voting for Trump. And then you could get him and another one of your crew all
No,
wrong.
but then you get, I was just going to say, then you get Capello pissed, and that's a different kind
Then
of
you got
anger.
Capello telling you that it's actually happening.
That's a way different kind
Because
of
Capello
anger.
thinks it's actually happening. You know that Biden's manipulating time, don't you?
It's
I
2
thought it was the
hours.
Hurricanes, Fred. I'm sorry.
They changed it to 2
God,
hours,
yeah.
but they're only telling the Democrats.
Oh, you've heard that how they're manipulating the weather in North Carolina to get the lithium. Yeah, my son has an instructor that put that on social media. He learned it from TikTok, so it's true.
Oh, okay.
You couldn't just go and blow up the place or just force everyone out. You'd have to manipulate the weather to
Yeah.
get them out.
Yeah.
Considering they blew. Are you aware? Oh, forget it. Are you aware of the interstate highway system? People had land on that. They just said scram. All right, Bob Socci, Drake Maye. The more, if I'm a Patriot fan, the more I watch this, the more I'm excited. He made some mistakes yesterday, whatever. But in terms of the way the game is going and the quarterbacks that are performing well right now, I mean, I'm looking at Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. I mean, this kid is fast, athletic, big arm, can throw on the move, can extend plays, can pick up yards when he needs to with the ball in his hands. I mean, this kid's got everything.
Yeah, Fred. I mean, I know it's a small sample size, and we've seen a lot of quarterbacks have good rookie years and then drop off considerably. But I think the things you're talking about, I mean, we're talking about his athletic ability and his ceiling athletically. And, he hasn't even really begun to approach it in terms of his long-term potential. So I think there's a lot to be excited about with regards to Drake Maye. I mean, I think you can say the Patriots have a guy who should be their quarterback for a long time to come, even this early in his career. But a lot of that depends on whether he can get to that point, on who you surround him with and what they do to support him going forward, because certainly he needs the help, as Zoe said, as we heard coming out of that break.
And just if you want an illustration of that, look at Mason Rudolph yesterday trying to evade the rush and trying to get past the line, when he's scrambling. I mean, getting caught from behind by, 300-pound defensive lineman. I mean, there's a big difference. I mean, if you just watch the league and where this league is going and where it's gone, I know that players have flamed out, but like Mac Jones never showed like this. You know what I'm saying? Like Mac Jones was effective, but it was obvious right away he was never going to, he had no ability to be elite. In terms of physical ability, this kid, Drake Maye, has the ability to be elite. Will he be? Who knows? Probably not, right? Like elite, probably not. But in terms of physical ability and composure so far,
Yeah.
he's showing these two things.
I think the composure, I think the competitiveness. I think the difference, too, is that there are guys who can make throws. You hear that term all the time when guys come out of college. Well, you can make all the throws. But then there are guys who can make throws, but also make plays. And I think Drake Maye is that guy who can make plays. And what he did yesterday with his legs running, when he did with his legs to throw, to create, extended plays and complete some passes, We saw it even the week before when he had that ball that was dropped by Tyquan Thorne, a perfect illustration of his ability to make that off-platform throw that we heard so much about coming out of North Carolina. But I think especially encouraging to me is just how good his mechanics have been in the process of all of this. So much of the talk about him as well coming out of Carolina is as a developmental quarterback, in a sense. He had to work on his footwork, he had to work on his release, his delivery. And you watch him run. He's under control. He's very fast while being under control. His eyes are downfield in the right place. He's got two hands on the ball. He's able to throw the ball still with his shoulders in position to make the throw downfield. The footwork has been clean. The way he's maneuvered in the pocket has been good. So I think we've seen the blend of that physical upside with also what he needed to work on coming out of college. We've seen the evidence that he's grasping that.
So what's your level of concern, Bob, watching him yesterday when he takes off and starts running out of the pocket, and also a couple of times in the first half yesterday, almost has his helmet taken off at the end of one of those plays, or even when he's back in the pocket, because I was holding my breath every time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially you start to see him run, and then you look for him to slide feet first, which is, of course, how he got hurt, but nonetheless, it's what you would expect if a quarterback tried to protect himself. But instead, he's leading, going in head first. You watch it and try to call a little bit with bated breath, but absolutely, there's concern there. But you don't want to also take away that competitive nature that he has, the willingness and the want to. Sorry for that, cliche, but the ability to make plays and also the desire to make those plays and to put himself out there the way he did. Hopefully, there's better protection for him going forward. And he doesn't have to do those things. That's what you should count on. You should look for maybe one or two of those runs a game, not a half dozen of them per game.
Okay, Bob, we were talking about the Lions as a place I'm going with this. And
Sure.
Yesterday they went to Green Bay in the rain. There was talk about how they're an indoor team and Goff can't win in the rain. And we started talking about how Campbell has created like an identity for that team. And he only won 3 games his first year as coach, and I, for one, thought he was a buffoon. A lot of people did. Most people did. But he did develop an attitude. So take us to Maye makes that terrific play to send the game into overtime. They settle for the extra point. What do you think about going for 2? I know whatever the analytics say, I know it was marginally on the side of kicking the extra point. But you just beat the Jets by grinding out 2 drives and Stevenson on a 4th and 1 at the goal line, or 4th and goal from the 1. What do you think about if you're developing an attitude more than the win, the idea that you went for the 2, that we can pick up 2 yards when we have to? What do you think about that idea?
Well, I think the idea is great under most circumstances, but I think Drake Maye told us yesterday after the game, and I thought he told us after that play, everything we needed to know why that wasn't the situation to go for 2, in my opinion. And it's something that Zoe and I discussed after the game and didn't consider in the moment, because I just rewatched the entire sequence a little while ago. He's running around for 12 seconds. All of his teammates are in that scramble mode. You don't have any timeouts. So he completes the play while being knocked to the turf. You watch him get up and run to the sideline, and he's really not running. He's jogging. He's bent over. Even after the extra point was made by Joey Slye, to me, it looks like Maye is still kind of catching his breath as he's congratulating teammates coming off the field. And I think, he told us in his post-game remarks yesterday that physically, to ask him to go back out there, and I think to organize the offense in that situation after that kind of a play to get you within 1, I just don't think it made a lot of sense to go for 2 there, because you're probably going to take a delay of game penalty. You're out of timeouts. Now, it's a little bit different if it's a more conventional play where you can hand the ball off, a guy punches it in for the touchdown, and now you're thinking, okay, we're ready to go. Let's go. Let's keep the pressure on them. Also, if you're playing against a better team, I think it's a no doubt about it situation where maybe you try to win the game in regulation because you like your chances. But I think you're playing against a bad team that's more prone to make a mistake on its possession if they get the ball first. And they did. They put the ball on the ground twice on the kickoff return and later on a botched snap, and he still held them to a field goal. And to me, the bottom line is the Patriots at the end of overtime still had fate in their control. They had the ball with a chance to win it. So that's why I didn't think it was that big a deal as it's become, certainly in the post-game analysis. And I think there's a lot of people that believe that the Patriots should have gone for two. But I do think, Fred, to your point, generally speaking, an aggressive mindset, an aggressive attitude has served the Lions well. We laughed at them when they came into Gillette in 2022, I think it was, and went 0 for 6 or something like that on fourth down. And, last year in the NFC Championship game, maybe Dan Campbell would have been better served to exercise a little more of a conservative, old school approach and not pass up field goal attempts to try to go for it on fourth down, and his team might have been in the Super Bowl. But I do like that aggressive mindset as a general rule. I just don't think that was the case yesterday. It was really as applicable as it might be in most circumstances.
Well, I just heard real quick. I just heard Joe after the game, because it deals with this, talking about how maybe the fatigue of the offense and the hit that Maye took influenced how they handled their drive in overtime, in that it was uncharacteristic the way that they went deep twice. Do you see anything with that?
I don't know about that. What I thought about the first play, and again, rewatching these plays just a few minutes ago, I thought the first play made like the matchup of Henry against Brown, who's listed as a safety but more of a linebacker, Bill, because the entire play, his eyes are on Hunter Henry. So my guess is that, and this is without hearing an explanation, my guess is that he made up his mind at the line of scrimmage, that's where I'm going to go, because you watch the play develop and his eyes are on Hunter Henry, and Pop Douglas is coming open underneath on the other side of the field. What I didn't like about the last play and rewatching is there weren't really a lot of options for him in the short to intermediate range. I think he had a tight end who ran a bit of a spot route to the right, and he sees the booty downfield. I think a good question that was asked in Gerard Mayo's teleconference, just as we were going on the air here, was about the decision to kick in the direction the Patriots kicked in overtime, because we saw the wind in the opening quarter, I think, affected Joey Sly field goal attempt, where the wind knocked that ball down coming out of that end zone, or going toward the end zone to our right. And that's where Maye threw the ball. And you heard him say after the game that throwing it into the wind was a bad decision. And I think the wind did affect that throw, not that Hooker wouldn't have picked it off otherwise, based on the way he read the play as a safety that Maye might not have seen initially when he let it go. But I didn't like the last play. In rewatching it, I thought the first play of overtime was really more on Maye locking in on Henry, and I thought the second play in between was a case where I don't know what they were going to really try to do, because he was under pressure immediately and had to bail to his right, never really with a chance to see how that play was going to develop.
Yeah, just back to the 2-point conversion thoughts, Bob, and you make some good points. The one that I think I most agree with, though, is the only way it works, especially after the way everybody was scrambling around on the touchdown pass, is that you would have needed to have decided to go for two several plays beforehand, and everybody knew that was going to be the drill, because they didn't have any time to get anything in there. And at least mentally you're ready to go. Even if you're tired, you knew at that moment that we're going to have to go for two immediately afterward. Had they sprung it on him and said, you know what, we're going to go for two here after all, then, okay, probably not. It probably wasn't going to succeed either way. And we know the percentages, and we've been talking about it today. But had they decided from the start of that drive, okay, once we score here, we're going for two, and everybody knows going in, maybe that makes that decision, if not the right one, just an easier one on the team.
Yeah, and I also think too, Hardy, and maybe this is reading too much into it at the final series, because they didn't stop them on the previous series, but they got the 3 and out when they needed to. The defense got the stop. The Patriots used their timeouts to get the ball back. So they had shown the ability in that case. The Titans had only scored 13 points. In 7 of them were on a short field from 26 yards out after the strip sack. Granted, they also threw an interception at the goal line. And I also think, too, again, the chances are you're playing against a team like that. I think in that situation, you want to get to overtime. And I get it. You're on the road. And again, I think in the normal circumstances, that situation where maybe it's the underdog, so to speak, you've got it in your mind. You want that attitude. You're going to go for two. I just think the way that play unfolded, it really eliminated that possibility in my mind. Just watching Drake Maye, again, after that play, moving around as much as he did, taking the hit, just seeing him try to go to the sideline after the play, realistically, to think that they were going to be able to get lined up again and run a successful 2-point try. And like I said, the Titans put the ball on the ground twice thereafter in overtime. The Patriots still had possession, down only 3. They recover one of those fumbles, or they take advantage of that opportunity at the end of overtime, then we're not talking about the decision to go for the conventional, 1-point kick rather than a 2-point try.
Real quick, Bob. It's a good
Please.
thing Drake Maye did what he did in the last couple of minutes, because it kind of whitewashed another wildly inconsistent game. Offense, defense, special teams. You saw Layden Robinson struggle early. For some reason, Calvin Ridley was able to run free in the secondary, even when being guarded man-to-man by Christian Gonzalez. And you had bad punts by Bryce Behringer, a missed field goal by Nick Folk. I'm not seeing a lot of advancement or improvement as the season goes along. They still make these same mistakes over and over and over again.
And, John, you left out a lack of pressure. And I think it's a big thing, for the Patriots. They're playing against a team that turned the ball over with a negative 16 turnover differential.
Horrible
going
team
into that
they
game.
played yesterday.
Yeah, a bad football team, and I thought a poorly coached team, a lot of respects in terms of the play calling by Brian Callahan. And he showed that on the goal line situation when the ball was intercepted, where they could have pounded it in with Pollard, from the 3, giving him 3 cracks to run it in. They passed twice on 2nd and 3rd down, and the 3rd down pass got intercepted off a deflection. So I think you're right, and I think a big concern is that their defense is not taking the ball away, even against a bad team like Tennessee. And part of that is they're just not getting pressure, and they're not getting pressure on the quarterback consistently, even erratically for most of the game. We're just not seeing it. So there's a lot of problems for this football team. That's why they're where they are, 2-7.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.